Number 10. Christina Guess. In July 2022, the FBI and the Volusia County Sheriff's Office in Florida reportedly took down a large drug operation. The leader of the gang was none other than a former prison officer. Investigators started their search for leads in March 2021. After tirelessly working, they finally discovered that Christina Guess and Rashard Campbell were the head of the drug ring. During the sting operation to arrest the suspects, police confiscated a large amount of meth, cocaine, and several hydrocodone pills. 11 other people were taken into custody in connection to the Volusia ring. In 1 year alone, they supposedly were able to distribute up to 24 pounds of illegal substances. After entering the consumer market, many dealers dilute their base product, so it's possible that the amount of meth Guess and her crew sold tripled on the streets. In December 2021, an innocent child was killed from meth poisoning. It's believed that Guess's operation likely had some role in this death. A suspect tied to the ring was allegedly the one looking after the infant when it was poisoned. The former prison worker has been arrested for drug-related charges in her past, so her involvement in this incident didn't come as a huge shock. At the moment, it's unclear what she was sentenced to as the case continues to work through the legal system. Number 9. Jason McINTOSH. 46-year-old Jason McINTOSH and 31-year-old Megan Montgomery got married in February 2018. They were caught up in a whirlwind romance, and just 1 year later, the two had a massive argument at their Alabama home, causing them to separate. The dispute involved a gun, which according to Jason, accidentally fired and hit Megan in the arm. When police were called to the scene, Jason, an officer with the Hoover Police Department at the time, claimed they were wrestling over the weapon before it went off. The man resigned from his position in law enforcement 2 days later. Detectives said that Jason was undoubtedly the one who started the physical altercation. Luckily, his wife decided not to press charges, but the man's gun was confiscated by the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency. He was also given a restraining order and was told to stay away from Megan. Despite this giant red flag, Jason's pistol was given back to him just 9 months later. Not long after having the weapon returned, Jason targeted his estranged wife while she was out at a bar having fun with some friends in December 2019. He went inside the establishment and forcefully dragged her outside before shoving her in a car. Then he drove to a secluded parking lot before beating her severely and shooting her in the head. Unfortunately, Megan died at the scene. On March 31, 2021, Jason pled guilty to murdering his wife, and as a result, he was handed 30 years in prison for the crime. Megan's death was entirely avoidable. Before her untimely demise, Jason texted his former lover countless threats. We can only wonder what would have happened if law enforcement had paid more attention. Number 8. RASVINDER AGALLIU. 47-year-old former Met police officer RASVINDER AGALLIU was arrested in 2020 on suspicion of supplying criminals with drugs. On June 25th of that year, authorities went through one of the woman's 2 properties in London and discovered large amounts of drugs and cash. It seems the 20-year-old law enforcement veteran had turned to the dark side. RASVINDER was not only an agent of the law, but she was the mother of 3 children. She also participated in several beauty pageants and wanted to become a model or TV star. RASVINDER had an incredibly lavish lifestyle. She lived in an upscale home, owned a luxury car, and wore high-end designer clothes almost every day. The woman claimed that her husband was the drug lord, and that she had no idea he participated in the illicit activities. The man allegedly never paid taxes because he earned a living through cash. Considering this and all the illicit paraphernalia in the couple's home, the court didn't buy RASVINDER's claims. Through the investigation, they believed that the woman's husband made no attempt at all to hide his illegal career. With drugs and supply equipment littered about their property, it was obvious the former policewoman would have known what he was up to. While she was fired from her job, she apparently didn't receive any criminal charges. Her husband Julian, though, was convicted of drug-related crimes. His next court appointment is set to take place on February 9th, 2023. Number 7. Joseph Copeland. In August 2022, an investigation with the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office was opened. The department received a tip from a mandatory reporter that one of their officers, 30-year-old Joseph Copeland, had engaged in sexual activity with a minor while on duty. The person who gave the tip reportedly heard about the crime after a friend of the victim spoke to her. The friend had audio recorded a conversation with the victim where the crime was mentioned. After the inquiry started, Joseph resigned from his position on the force. Police officers questioned the minor about the alleged misconduct and received more evidence against Joseph. The man had been communicating with the teenager through social media sites like Instagram and Snapchat. Upon further investigation, it was revealed that the messages exchanged between the two of them weren't overly sexual. At one point, the teen did send the suspect a photo containing their driver's license, but this was supposedly to help with a traffic ticket. Later on, the victim admitted that they'd met up with the officer in a parking lot. While there, the two engaged in sexual acts inside a marked police car while Joseph was on active duty. Before this meetup, they'd been talking to each other for over a year. While the suspect pleaded guilty to his actions in court, the judge overseeing his case, Brenda Ricks, sentenced him to 5 years behind bars. However, this sentence was later suspended along with another 10-year prison sentence. Unfortunately, it seems that Officer Joseph Copeland will only be punished with probation for his disgusting crime, although he'll have to register as a sex offender. Number 6. Nathan Nash. While on active duty, a police officer in Spokane, Washington took advantage of 2 women. 39-year-old Nathan Nash had charges brought against him in 2019 after a woman came forward accusing him of sexual assault. The crime supposedly happened while the cop was dealing with a case involving the victim. He was one of the law enforcement agents who responded to her 911 call after she was abused by her boyfriend at the time. Instead of finding safety and comfort from a policeman, the poor victim was instead the target of sexual assault when Nash visited her home to get more details regarding the case. 2 years later, in August 2021, another unnamed victim reported a similar incident. After calling for help, the responding officer assaulted her upon showing up to her property for a follow-up interview. It's unclear when the 2 incidents of abuse happened, but Nash was fired from the police department after the 2019 accusation. In summer 2022, the man was found guilty, and he now faces life in prison for his despicable actions. Have you ever had a weird interaction with a current or former police officer? Let us know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 5. Eric A. Bennett. A 46-year-old Seabright police officer in New Jersey named Eric A. Bennett dated an unnamed woman before they broke up in November 2022. It seems the man couldn't take the heartbreak and romantic rejection. On December 5th of that year, he went to the woman's house and made several threats to hurt her. When she finally got him to leave, the victim blocked Eric on every social platform she could think of and set up security cameras for added protection around her home. Sadly, this move didn't go over well with the obsessive officer. The former cop created fake profiles to message his ex and harass her. Then, one day in January 2023, the woman noticed that the tires on her car were all deflated and had been slashed. On top of this, there was a long scratch where someone had obviously keyed the vehicle. Her security cameras and even her doorbell device were also taken down. Police were able to tie Eric with the fake profiles and pinned him in the area of the victim's property at the time of the crime. On further investigation, detectives also realized that Eric had illegally used police databases to look up information on his ex-girlfriend. He reportedly did this over 30 times to find dirt on her and her close friends. Luckily, towards the end of January 2023, the stalker was arrested and suspended from his position with the Seabright police. He has yet to be sentenced, but at least he's off the streets and far away from his ex. Number 4. Robert Fratta. In January 2023, a 65-year-old former Houston police officer was put to death by lethal injection for murdering his wife way back in 1994. Robert Fratta hired 2 killers to do his dirty work, Joseph Priestash and Howard Guidry. Both men assisted in the assassination of 33-year-old Farah Fratta, but Guidry was responsible for firing 2 bullets which struck the victim in the head, consequently killing her. Before her death, Robert allegedly expressed multiple times how much he'd enjoy seeing his partner dead. The man supposedly asked a few different people if they knew someone who could help him take her out. Despite this, the man maintained that he was innocent up until the very end. The suspect received his first death sentence in 1996, but this ruling was overturned. Once again, in 2009, the case went back to court, and he received the death penalty a second time. One of Robert's sons, Kahan, said that his father was a coward the night he went through with the crime up until the day of his death. At the very least, his 3 children wanted an apology for what he did, but sadly, Robert never gave them that. Number 3. TORY BRIDGEFORTH. In January 2023, a former Chicago police officer named TORY BRIDGEFORTH was taken into custody for possessing CP. The 37-year-old man allegedly had multiple photos of minors involved in sexual acts on his phone. Sadly, some of the children depicted were incredibly young. The ex-cop's bail has been set at $1 million as he faces 3 serious felony charges related to his crimes. Investigators got an anonymous tip about an email address consuming CP. They tracked down TORY from this lead and kept careful surveillance on him. Then, they arrested him and looked through the man's phone. About 35 illegal images and videos were discovered. When questioned, TORY said he was the only person who used the device. The former officer's defense attorney claims that the entire situation is a big misunderstanding. The lawyer says that TORY was actually the one who sent the tip to the hotline in the first place. However, this argument doesn't line up with the evidence or the accused suspect's past. In 2018, TORY was fired from his law enforcement job after supposedly giving 3 kids edibles and alcohol. After handing the children these substances, he apparently took them home. It doesn't seem like anything happened beyond this in that situation at least, but who knows what the man was up to. As the case progresses, TORY has been ordered not to contact anyone who isn't a legal adult. This includes his 12-year-old daughter. Number 2. LINC O'Shea Brooks. A retired police officer from Rocky Mount, North Carolina was arrested in January 2023. Authorities have accused LINC O'Shea Brooks of being involved in drug trafficking, specifically trafficking cocaine. The man was pulled over on the highway one night for violating traffic laws. During the routine stop, LINC told the deputy that he was once on the force. The conversation later escalated, and a police canine was brought in to sniff the man's vehicle for drugs. The dog detected narcotics inside the man's car, so officers proceeded to search his GMC Denali. At this point, the suspect grew visibly uneasy and began to interfere with the search. Because of his actions, the responding policemen took him into custody. They ended up finding over $20,000 worth of cocaine inside the center console of LINC's truck. After obtaining a warrant, the man's home was also searched. There, evidence of drug distribution was found as well as several guns. Since it's still early on in the case, there's been no official sentencing or verdict for the crime. Number 1. Dennis Perkins. Yet another former police officer has been accused of watching CP and participating in sex crimes in Louisiana. 47-year-old Dennis Perkins was sentenced to 100 years in prison after he and his wife Cynthia engaged in deeply disturbing acts. As a teacher, Cynthia openly admitted back in 2019 to feeding her junior high-age students cupcakes. They weren't just any old cupcakes though. The pastries apparently contained her husband's sperm. This was just one of the disgusting things the couple did. For her role in the sex crimes, Cynthia was sentenced to 41 years behind bars. At the start of 2023, the couple was found guilty of over 150 charges, some of which included sexual assault, child battery, and more. In a statement the ex-cop made after appearing in court, Dennis claimed that Jesus had forgiven him for his sins. Luckily, it's not up to Jesus to decide who spends the rest of their life in prison. If you were married to a police officer and you found out they were taking bribes from criminals, would you report them immediately? Or would you confront them about their behavior in hopes that there would be an explanation for their actions? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.